In my head, I turned it on, but in reality, I did not. Hey, how you guys doing? Good? Awake? Tired? Hey, daylight savings is coming up. Did you guys know that? So we're gonna fall back soon-ish. I actually don't know when. In the fall sometime. Hey, I wanted to bring up one thing. Super controversial, apparently to all of us. Can we go back? Hannah, can you find that photo of the light bulb real quickly? Because who thought the light bulb was on? Raise your hand. Okay, okay, okay. Who thought the light bulb is off? Raise your hand. Okay, all right, all right. So interesting. It seems like it's very controversial. So here's the thing. I think it is in fact on. If you look at it, do you see light in the light bulb? Therefore, it's on. I don't. Hey, have you ever had like a controversial like conversation with like a friend where like a lot of people have different opinions on something, but at the end of the day, maybe it doesn't really matter, right? So, have you ever heard this question? Is water wet? Has anyone ever heard that question before? Okay, raise your hand if you think water is in fact wet. Okay, 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 okay. I liked your response. That was raise your hand if you do not think water is wet. Raise your hand. Okay, okay. Water is a liquid. Good job. Uh, okay, I Googled this backstage as we were worshiping, as I was preparing. I was curious. So, as I do, I Google something, right? And I got over 3 billion results in the fact, is water wet? And here is the response. If you're referring to wetness as the interaction between a liquid and a solid surface, as most do, then water is not wet. If you're considering wetness as a sensation or experience involving liquids, then you could potentially argue that water is wet. Here's my argument. Who cares? All right. Hey, as we jump into this time of teaching, if we haven't had the chance to meet, my name is Johnny. There should be a message note sheet in front of you, behind you, above you. I don't know where it is. If you have one, just grab it and raise it above your head and just wave it like you just don't care. Awesome stuff. Hey, if it's your first time joining us on a Sunday morning, big special welcome to you. That message note sheet is a great way to follow along. If you're like me, I'm easily forgetful. So there's some fill in the blanks on the front and the back. It's just a great way to hopefully follow along and remember anything that we're going to be talking about this morning. The fill-ins are going to be on the screen, and they'll be up there for a little bit, so don't worry. It's not going to be like that game we played earlier where you like have 2 seconds to try to remember what we're talking about. Hannah, make sure it's up there for a little bit longer. But you also have all the power, so if you want to unplug anything, go for it. All right. Hey, so as we jump into this time of teaching, make sure you have that note sheet. Make sure you have a Bible with you. We're going to be using that in this time. And as we jump on in, I want to just quickly remind us of what this time is about. You see, we get the opportunity as we enter into this time of teaching to learn more about who Jesus is and what he is calling us to as middle school students. So as we continue and kind of wrap up this series called Thriving in Middle School, we get the opportunity to understand that Jesus is always with us and he is calling all of us to something much bigger than we could possibly imagine. So let's go ahead and pray and then we'll jump right in. Jesus, thank you so much for this time. Thank you so much for every single person here. We are excited that we are in the presence of the King, that you are with us no matter where we go. And Jesus, we get the opportunity right now to just see how awesome you are and what you are calling us to. So as we enter into this time, would you just remind us that, man, you are always with us. Even when life gets really scary or even when life is awesome, you're always with us. And it's in your name we all said, amen. Hey, well, I want to ask you guys a question. Who has ever heard of a tongue twister? Raise your hand, a tongue twister. Awesome, awesome. Has anyone ever like done tongue twisters? Like if you do drama class, like this is like a go-to. Has anyone ever done this before? Awesome. Hey, so years and years, when I was in seventh grade, I took acting class. Can you believe that? And nothing came of it at all. I know. But I took acting class, and what we had to do is that we actually had to do certain tongue twisters to prepare us to talk well or talk gooder. And some of these tongue twisters, Kate just cringed in the back as an English major. But some of these tongue twisters are actually quite difficult to master. There are some that are incredibly long and very, very difficult to even remember. And I thought it'd be kind of funny to teach some of you some of these tongue twisters. And these are designed to help you talk better. To kind of prepare all of the muscles in your face so that you can say things better. So here's one tongue twister that I think is pretty simple. We'll just try to hit two. So here's the first one. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. So let's try that together on three. Ready? I'll say it with us. So here we go on three. One, two, three. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Does anyone not like ice cream? Wow. All right. All right. That's not even controversial. You're just wrong. I'm joking. Here's the second one. She sells seashells by the seashore. Did it, hold on. On three. Hold. Some of you are going. She's. Let's try it on three. One, two, three. She sells seashells by the seashore. Pretty good, guys. Now, here's the thing with these tongue twisters. These are designed, again, to help us talk in a way that we are not stumbling over our words, which is ironic because a lot of those tongue twisters actually cause us to stumble over our words and not talk in a way that we really are designed to. And the reason I share that is because we are wrapping up this series called Thriving in Middle School. And what we've seen over the last few weeks is looking at this idea that Jesus does not want us just to survive in life. In the context of middle school, I think for some of us, especially when I was in middle school, if you were to talk to your life group leaders, they would say the same thing. Middle school is hard. Middle school is challenging. It's an incredibly difficult time for so many middle schoolers in that span of your life. And Jesus has a much bigger plan for all of us and for all of you, that he doesn't want you just to survive, that you get into school and you quickly leave. You kind of walk in this posture of kind of having your head down. You're not looking to that person over there. You're not trying to make eye contact with the teacher or else they're going to call on you. You know what I'm talking about? Like, we often have this mentality that we need just to survive and hopefully everything will work out. Jesus has a much bigger plan that he wants all of us to thrive in our life. Knowing that he is always with us, knowing that he's for us, knowing that he's going to help us out when we need it. Even when we think we don't need help, Jesus is always there. And over the last few weeks, we've kind of been having you guys think of this context of like, we want to equip you to have kind of like the Swiss Army knife of middle school. If you've ever seen a Swiss Army knife before, we'll have an image on the screen, but it's basically designed that there are multiple tools on this one tool to help you in most any situation that you get yourself in. There's a little screwdriver on some of them. There's a little knife on there if you have to cut a rope or something like that. Like, these are designed to help you in certain situations. But if you don't know how it works, you're just gonna like put it on like a shelf and just not even look at it. So over the last few weeks, we've been looking at topics such as how to choose the right friends in our life. That it's not about the quantity, it's not about the amount of friends that you have, but it's about the quality, finding the right friends that will challenge you and point you to Jesus and to his truth. And then in week 2, we looked at wisdom, that only wisdom comes from God. And Jonathan did a great job unpacking this reality that so many of us have this hard time of like, we want to do the right thing, we want to live God's way, but we tend just to choose what we want instead. And we live in this tension that causes us just to get upset and we need to understand that God's wisdom is so much better and his way is always better. Well, this morning, as we wrap up this series, I want to kind of help us understand what it means to talk better, to speak in a way that is, in a way, thriving in life. Now, I'm not going to have you guys come up here and do like a public speech or anything like that, or like an impromptu speech. I had to do that in college where we had to come up to the stage in front of like our classroom, and the impromptu speech we had to like just pick up a random piece of paper, flip it over, and whatever the topic was on the paper, we had to respond in a 3 minute and we had like no time to prepare. So we're not going to like do anything like that, and I'm also not going to talk and teach you guys like how to talk to, like, how do you talk to girls, how do you talk to guys. Like, we're not going to talk about that either, because I know for some of you, you would rather do anything else right now, but for some of you, you'd be like, actually, that would be pretty cool. February's coming up, the month of love. That would be very helpful. We're not going to do that, all right? What I want to help us understand is that the power of our words is super important. You see, Solomon in Proverbs says this on your note sheet and also on the screen. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruits." So we're going to be talking about the tongue, or the words that we say. You see, so many of us, we don't even realize how we're talking to other people until maybe it's too late and we're on this path in our life where people don't want to be around us because we're tearing other people down, we're making other people feel bad, but we're just saying we are joking. Here's the thing I want you guys to catch. The first fill in on your note sheet, write this down. How you speak today determines your tomorrow. How you speak today, how you speak right now, will determine your tomorrow. And we'll kind of come back to that a little bit later. Now, we're going to jump into the New Testament of our Bibles in the book of James. And we're going to be in chapter 3. So if you have a Bible with you, we're going to be in James chapter 3, starting at verse 3. Now, the verses are not going to be on the screen because I want to encourage you guys to be bringing a real Bible. If you didn't, for whatever reason this morning, you can borrow one of ours. They're going to be on the IKEA tables in front of you. But we're going to be in James chapter 3, and we're going to be starting at verse 3. Now, if it's your first time joining us on a Sunday morning, the Bible is split into two halves. And if you've never opened a Bible, you are in the right place. The first half of the Bible is what we call the Old Testament, and then the New Testament is the second half of our Bibles. If you have no idea where the book of James is, there's a table of contents in the first couple pages of every Bible, and that is designed as a tool to help you find certain page numbers of certain books. So never feel shameful of like, oh, I don't know where the book of James is, or like there's a book called Lamentation. Like, where is that? Like, never feel shame over that. The first couple pages in the table of contents is designed to help us find certain books in the Bible. Now, James chapter 3, starting at verse 3, what we're going to see, James, who is teaching to a bunch of Christians, you're going to see that he says, brothers and sisters. Remember, this is a letter. It's not just like random pages or random words. He's writing to a certain people group, Christians. And in the same way, he is going to help us understand the power of the tongue, the power of our words. So, James chapter 3, starting at verse 3, and we'll pause a little bit to unpack a little bit. So, it says this: "When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, or in the same way, likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark." Now we're going to pause right there to help us understand, why is James talking about a horse? Why is he talking about a ship? Like, I thought this was the Bible. Why is he sharing all these things. Now, I want us to take a step back and think about a horse. Has anyone ever seen a horse before? Awesome. Google one later. Just type in horse. All right. Has anyone ever seen a boat or a ship, or maybe been on like a cruise before? Yeah, some of us. Now, if you know horses, or if you know animals, if you have a dog, you know that they are really swayed by food. And so many of us are as well. But if you were to try to teach a horse or a dog or some type of animal to do something, you are going to use food as an incentive to have them do whatever you want them to do. And that's a very small thing. Hey, ladies in the front. That's a very small thing, but it controls a very large animal. And in the same way as a boat, very large boat, a large cruise ship, it's controlled by a small little rudder. Now, I have an image on the screen of Cody as a little boy. And this is not Cody, but he's cute. Now, as you see in this boat, which is not a large boat, but to Cody it is, and is as you see, there's a small rudder behind the boat. As you see, kind of like that white part where the little blue thing is. I'm very good at describing things, aren't I? As you see, that rudder is what directs where the boat is going to go. And what we need to understand, and what James is trying to share with these imagery and all this stuff, is that our tongue, though it is very small, is very powerful. So the next fill in on your note sheet is that, catch this, or sorry, not catch this. My iPad froze. That's cool. All right, so the tongue is small, is a small part of your body, yet it is very powerful. So write that down. Super important to understand that the tongue, our tongue, though it is very tiny, it is small. It is very powerful. Now, I want to ask you guys a question, and just think about it in your head. Do you typically encourage people or tear people down? I think for sometimes we don't even think that when we are speaking that we are bringing life into a situation, or that we're bringing death and destruction. I think sometimes if we were to go around the room like, hey, when you talk to your friends, talk to your parents, talk to your brothers or sisters, your friends at school, your teachers, anyone in your life, do you encourage people? Do you choose kindness in how you talk, or do you typically tear people down? I think for the majority, we would say, no, I encourage people. I try to talk well of other people. But what I want to say is that, a little side note, is that gossip is one of those things that we don't even realize we're doing it until it's too late. You see, gossip is kind of like a silent killer when it comes to middle school. And I think for some of us, not all of us, but some of us, I think we would say that gossip is no big deal. That gossip is just, it's just a way for me to like kind of get my thoughts and my feelings out. Maybe some of us say, I'm just venting, or I'm just processing right now. Like, this person did this to me, or I can't believe she did this, or like, I can't believe he said that. Can you believe that they did that or said this? And what I want to share with us is that as James continues, is he actually talks about gossip and how that really is a silent killer in so many relationships. So as we continue reading in verse 6, he goes on to say, the tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. Let's pause right there. Now, James' description of the tongue, it kind of sounds like a horror movie, right? He talks about how your tongue is full of deadly poison. Deadly poison. He even says how the tongue, again, though it is small, it can create a huge wildfire. Like a small little spark can create this huge forest fire. Has anyone ever seen like a forest fire or a wildfire before, maybe on the news? I know like 4 years ago in October in 2019, there was like this huge like wildfire in like near Santa Clarita area. It was wild. Does some of you remember that? It was wild. Now, if you've never seen a wildfire before, we have an image here on the screen. And these can be crazy. And these can start just by a little spark or a little flame can create this insane forest fire. So, what James is sharing is what he's trying to kind of help us understand is that our tongue, the words that we say, though it is small, it can be a good thing or it can lead to destruction, kind of like a forest fire. Now, Harvard Business School. Does anyone go to Harvard? Cool, awesome. I can't. They said no. But they saw me and they were like, no. Harvard Business School actually did this study, kind of sharing compliments versus criticism, and they actually said that one critical remark is equal to about 5.6 compliments. And what that means is that one mean comment has the ability to undo six compliments. So one mean remark to someone can undo six compliments to someone. So for example, say I was hanging out with your life group, or we were hanging out with your life group at Chick-fil-A because they're awesome, but not on Sunday. Bummer. So we're at Raising Cane's on a Sunday, all right? And imagine, hey, I like notice a couple things about you. Like, hey, you're having a great hair day. And I say, like, you're having a good hair day. Hey, I really like your Star Wars shirt, or I like your Marvel shirt, or like you have like a Kansas City jersey. Like, you look awesome, right? Or I even say, like, hey, I know you play baseball, and that one time I came to your baseball game, like you did incredible. And then I go on to say, like, hey, I really like those shoes, like you have, like those are cool Nikes or whatever it is, like compliment after even though they're kind of small, you're like, huh, kind of makes me feel good. And then I just throw this out, like, hey, yeah, but you're like a complete idiot. Wouldn't that undo the like compliments I gave you? Like, hey, I like your hair. You have an awesome shirt on. Like, you're really good at baseball. Like all these things. I'm like, yeah, but you're like really dumb. That would just really start to make you feel kind of icky inside. And I think what we need to understand is that oftentimes when we just throw out just little remarks like that, even when we tend to be joking, especially for the guys in the room, we say and joke around with one another. I think sometimes we're not realizing that those are tearing others down, even when we're not meaning to. Even when we're not trying to tear someone down, those little remarks can undo so many other compliments or good things in our lives. You see, I think in middle school, you will see more people, especially at your schools, you'll see more people tear other people down than build other people up. And I just want to ask the question, what if wildlife was different? What if instead of we tore others down, again, maybe not on purpose, but instead we built other people up? Because I think for some of us, we would probably say we've never gossiped before, right? We've never gossiped. We've never talked about someone behind their back, especially when they're not in earshot. And I think for some of us, we would respond with, "I'm just joking," or like, "Hey, I'm not serious." Like, no, they're actually a really great person. I'm just joking. I think we don't even realize what gossip is until it's too late. And in Proverbs chapter 26, Solomon goes on to say this on your note sheet. It says, like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, I was only joking. I was just joking. Hey, I'm not serious. Like, no, you actually have a great personality. I'm just joking. Or like, you're actually really good at volleyball. I was just joking. I don't think we realize we gossip until it's too late. But as we talk about gossip, what do we mean by that? Like, you might have heard the word gossip before, and you might hear people gossip at school. But what does that even mean? Here's a quick definition according to kind of what the Bible talks about. Here's a simple definition of gossip. It's pretty blunt. Write this down, your next fill in. Gossip, on the back of your note sheet at the top, gossip is any word that does not build someone up. Gossip at the end of the day is any word. or any couple of words that is not building someone up. Let's continue reading in verse 9 as we wrap up this part of James. He says, with the tongue, we praise our Lord and Father, and with it, we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness or God's image. Out of the same mouth comes praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. And what James is sharing with us is, hey, people are paying attention to the words that you say. That if you are a Christian, a Christ follower, someone that loves and follows Jesus, James is saying, like, hey, you can't say certain words or tones because you are to be different than those people at school. And people are listening to the words that you are saying. Your teachers, your friends at school, your parents, your coaches, they are listening to what you are saying and how you are talking to other people. And I think sometimes we need to understand that when the Bible talks about our heart, we talked about our heart a little bit back in June in our wisdom series, right? How so many of us tend to follow our heart. And why? It's because Disney told you to, right? Like Elsa told you to follow your heart. But as we learned in that series back in June, is that our hearts are deceitful. They are lying to you. And that's why we need Jesus to do incredible heart surgery on us. But here's a truth I want you guys to know. Here's your next fill in on your note sheet. Here is the truth. Our words reveal our hearts. The words that we say reveal our hearts. Our hearts are basically what controls our entire life. If your heart is full of gossip, slander, making fun of people, that is what will come out of your mouth. But if your heart is pure, is following Jesus's way of living according to what the Bible says, then your heart will cause your words to be uplifting, to be encouraging, challenging to other people. Jesus said in Luke chapter 6, verse 45, he said this on your note sheet. He says, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart. And an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. And then I bolded this on your note sheet. This is super important. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. The words that we say is a direct reflection of how your heart is. Hey, and there's moments in my life where I respond to my wife, Bree, or I talk to her in a certain way that is just not always kind or forgiving. And I always have to then go to Jesus and be like, man, is my heart okay? And then I have to go and ask for forgiveness from Bree. And it's just kind of like an alarm of like, hey, is my heart okay? Here's the big thing I want you guys to remember. On the bottom of your note sheet, towards the middle, here's the big thing I want you guys to remember. Our tongues can be used for good or for evil. Our tongues can be used for good or for evil. The words that we say can be used for good or for evil, for life or for death. And I think sometimes, again, I don't even think we intend to talk to people a certain way because we're not even aware of how powerful the words that we say are. Again, a small little word or a phrase to someone, man, it can set someone's life on fire, metaphorically. And I don't even think we're realizing it, that sometimes the words that we say can either bring life or death. So the words, that your tongue is powerful. And you have a choice to make. Are you going to use it? Are you going to use it for good or for evil? For life or for death? As we wrap up, here is an action step, the action step I want you guys to do this week, to live out what we have been talking about. Again, if we just learn all about how to speak and how to talk to others and how Jesus cares about our hearts, and it's a direct reflection of how we talk to other people. If we just learn about that and say, awesome, that's great, but we don't do anything about it, like that's not a good. We want to put our knowledge, what we're learning, into action so we can share Jesus with other people, so that we can love our parents well, our siblings, our friends at school. We can then respect our teachers at school. So here's the action step, and I'll talk about it. Write this down on the bottom of your note sheet, your last fill in. Own your words. Own your words. If we don't own the words that we say, then the words that we do say are just going to own us. If we do not own the things that we say, then the words are going to own us. Like, for example, if my wife and I, Bree, some of you know her, but some of you may not. She's awesome. But if we were to have a conversation and I was slightly annoyed, not at her, but about something else going on, and I react in a certain way, that's just not kind. That is not okay. Maybe because I'm hangry, which happens a lot. You know those Snickers commercials? My life. um, if I were to respond poorly to her, um, I need to quickly ask for forgiveness. My response should not be, "Hey, just get over it." That would not be a good response, right? Or like, "Hey, it's not a big deal. Like, I'm just tired." I need to own the words that I say, and especially the words that like tear her down or someone else down. I need to ask for forgiveness. Because if we take control of the words that we say and not point fingers or put the blame on someone else, we're going to live a life that is thriving in middle school. And here's the thing, oftentimes we need to just go before Jesus and just ask for help, because we cannot do anything apart from Jesus. You may think you can, like, I got this. I can figure this out. Like, yeah, I cuss a little bit or I say some words that are not kind to other people, but like, I'll just stop that. No, you need Jesus to help you. And it's a reflection of how your heart is. And maybe for you, you're like, I'm trying to think about this. I don't have a problem with that. Maybe if you're like, no, I was told by my parents we're gonna respect whatever. But maybe you have a friend that does have a problem with the words that they say. As we learned a few weeks ago, that as friends, we need to keep each other accountable and encourage and challenge one another, even when it gets difficult and gets messy. So own the words that you are saying. So as the band comes up, we're going to go into one last song of worship. And I want us just to think about the words that we say day to day at school, to our parents, to our friends, to our siblings. How do you talk to other people? Do you typically respond by encouraging other people, challenging other people, pointing people to Jesus and the Bible and God's way of living? Or do you typically tear other people down? You see, we need to stop and think about the words that we are saying. And maybe for you, you are just like, I have no idea. I think a great way to figure it out is go to some people you trust, some good friends that you trust, that when they share something with you, you know they'll be honest with you. And just ask them like, "Hey, like do I encourage and bring challenge in your life, and kind of like, am I just kind with my words, or do I tear you down, or do you hear me tearing other people down?" And if that friend in your life is a true friend, hopefully they'll respond truthfully. Or maybe go to your life group leader and just ask them, like, very honest, like, "Hey, I don't know how my heart is, but I understand now that the heart is basically the source of like my actions. So own your words this week. Don't point fingers. Just stop and think like, am I bringing in encouragement to other people, or am I tearing other people down? When I'm with my friends, are we talking about people that are not there in a negative way, or am I encouraging other people? I'm going to invite you guys to stand on up and go ahead and just bow your heads, close your eyes. We're going to go in this one last song of worship. So go ahead and stand on up and then just bow your heads and close your eyes. We're going to go in this last song of worship. I'm going to go ahead and pray, and we'll jump right in. Jesus, thank you so much for this morning, for everyone here. We are grateful because you are here with us. Again, you're here to help us understand how we are to represent you and reflect who you are at our school, on our sports teams, wherever. So as we have been talking about the power of our words, how our tongues are a restless evil, would you help us just think about, like, are we going to use our words for good or for evil, for life or for death? Jesus, we give this whole morning to you, and it's in your name we all said, amen.